Epictetus says that circumstances do not create a person, but only reveal who they truly are. Whether being a loser is truly a bad thing depends on how you perceive it. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus has said many important things about what we generally pursue in life. In today's society, wealth and fame are often seen as the distinguishing features of success. However, when compared to things that are truly worth living for, things that we can only find within ourselves, these external pursuits seem trivial. Epictetus observed that the constant quest for success and approval keeps us from attaining something much greater. The pursuit of happiness, based on unreliable external circumstances, is often driven by our fear of being seen as a loser. Therefore, we must reflect on the value of the things we pursue and invest so much effort in. Either they contain nothing worth desiring, or the undesirable aspects are more prominent. Some things are unnecessary, while others are simply not worth the price we pay for them. However, we cannot clearly see this, and we think we are getting things for free that actually cost us dearly. Our foolishness can be proven by the way we only think of purchasing as paying cash for physical items. We perceive things we spend ourselves on as free gifts. If we had to give up our homes or attractive, profitable properties for these things, we would refuse to buy them. By observing how we behave when an opportunist selling goods approaches, we can understand how much we are willing to pay for something we desire. Often, things that cost us nothing are the ones that cost us the most. The freedom to pursue and attain things shows us how many things it takes away from us. We would be better off if these things didn't belong to us, and instead, we belong to ourselves. It's important to pay attention to this point, not only in terms of gain, but also in terms of loss. We should consider this perspective. This object is doomed to disappear. It is simply a surplus, and you would live just as easily without it. If you had it for a long time, you will lose it after using it to your satisfaction. If you didn't have it for long, you will lose it before you become attached to it. You will have less money, yes, and fewer worries, fewer friends, yes, and less jealousy. Look around and pay attention to the things that drive us mad, the things we lose with tears in our eyes. The problem with these things is not the loss itself, but the thought of losing them. No one feels the loss, but the mind tells them they have lost something. The person who has something has not truly lost anything. But how few people are blessed with the gift of self-possession. What a tragic situation it is. Because by investing our money in foreign goods, we become dependent on them and lose our chance to be happy and free. According to Epictetus, we should be willing to let go of the less important things, and if that means we become completely losers in the eyes of society, then that is a price worth paying. This video does not advocate neglecting or harming oneself. From a Stoic perspective, it is trying to convey the opposite. Epictetus's philosophy offers a different way of determining what is truly important in life, and shows why the concept of being a loser and being seen as one doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. What is a loser? I did some research. According to the Turkish Language Institution, a loser is someone who fails or is defeated in a task or endeavor. Then I looked at Uni, the most comprehensive English dictionary, and found a definition that perfectly fits the topic of this video: an inadequate or unsuccessful person. However, competence and success depend on the observer. When does someone become competent? Some people may see a person as competent, while others may see the same person as inadequate. The same goes for success. When is someone considered successful? For many, starting a small business, like a cheekufta stall, is a success, while for others, success may mean placing people on another planet. Definitions of competence and success vary and change over time, depending on specific social environments, the sectors of the population, as well as culture and religion. Therefore, the concept of a loser is quite fluid, vague, and ultimately depends on what others understand. However, if we place this idea of loser within the context of today's consumer capitalist societies, we see that it is deeply connected to external things, especially acquiring money and fame. People have a certain general image of what they need to be whole, and this image varies depending on different social groups. For many, it consists of a well-paid job, an attractive spouse, 2 children, and an automatic transmission car. For others, it involves having a large following on social media and a wide, interesting social circle as proof of desirability. But what if you don't fit into this general image? What if you are incompetent in achieving something, and as a result, you cannot be successful in life? How tragic it is that being a loser means a double blow. It doesn't just mean that you failed in the eyes of society, but that you also become the subject of ridicule. But in the first place, how desirable is it to have what we are supposed to have, and how terrible is it to be ridiculed when we don't have it? This is where Epictetus comes into play. What do we want? Material goods. We're incredibly rich. In fact, as you've seen in some of my videos where I criticize certain things, when Instagram was down for a few days, some people were so devastated, as if a child had their toy taken away. To put it simply, what drives us to chase after these things is the promise of happiness. While enjoying cocktails on the beach and collecting comments and likes on our social media pages, we dream of a world where a boatload of people worships us. How wonderful must that feel? For a while, such a life might really seem great, but eventually we get used to it and return to our basic happiness, which comes with a much larger price tag. Epictetus didn't hold much regard for external goods. He described them as weak, enslaving, and most importantly, outside our control. While chasing after wealth and fame, we pursue things that could be taken from us at any moment, and thus we are chasing after the unreliable. Moreover, there is a significant price to pay for this pursuit, a price that many are willing to pay. But in doing so, they sacrifice a lot. For example, consider someone who wants to win at the Olympics, a pursuit that still garners great respect today, but also demands sacrifices. And we should also consider what this truly benefits us. Here's a quote. "You must follow the rules, submit, avoid certain foods, force your body, whether you want to or not, to work at specific times, in heat and cold, drink cold water, and sometimes even wine. In short, you must surrender yourself to your master as you would to a doctor. Then in battle, you might be thrown into a trench, your arm may be dislocated, your wrist may twist, you may swallow dust, suffer injuries, and in the end, lose the victory." End of quote. So, is all of this worth it? As Marcus Aurelius says, is it wise to undergo such hardship just for a few words of praise? Especially when we consider that public praise is fickle and can turn to public disgrace in the blink of an eye. Epictetus says these things are inconsistent and emphasizes that it is only those things under our control that are worth pursuing. These are inner qualities such as contentment, joy, right action, tranquility, and self-restraint. Everything else is exaggerated and should remain in the background. Epictetus repeatedly makes the distinction between what things truly are and the appearance of them in our minds. For example, he says there is a difference between how we see our loved ones and what they actually are. A man might see his wife and children as more unique and desirable than all other wives and children, but they are still just people, like everyone else. How they appear to our minds makes them special to us. What they actually are, without our judgment, is irrelevant. We can apply this logic to everything external. What makes the thing we pursue so attractive? Is it the thing itself or how we perceive it? Often, and unsurprisingly, we are a herd of sheep who want something simply because everyone else wants it. Moreover, we also don't want what others don't want, which is to be seen as a loser. Now, wanting what others want is not inherently wrong. In many cases, the things most people pursue may be beneficial for health and well-being, but in many other cases, it is not. It requires some wisdom and common sense to determine whether it's better not to follow the crowd. If we had that wisdom, or at least that common sense, we wouldn't be facing situations like being exploited or living like refugees in our own country for years. Epictetus says that we must value happiness and freedom above all else and be willing to let go of anything that stands in the way of them. If this means we are considered losers in the eyes of others, so be it. What's so bad about being a loser? Is it really an unfortunate fate, or do we perceive it as such because others make us believe it? Let's say we have enough money to meet our basic needs, but in other areas of life, we have almost nothing. No interesting social circles, no partners, no followers on social media, and no amazing or unique jobs. As a result, people call us losers, and somehow this implies that we are less than those who say so. Being seen as lesser by others scares people because it directly attacks their ego, the story they tell about themselves. But is someone truly less because they lack certain external conditions? Is a rich and famous person inherently better than a poor and unknown one? According to Epictetus's reasoning, such reasoning is quite absurd. Here's a quote: "These kinds of arguments are disconnected. I am richer than you, so I am better. I speak more beautifully than you, so my style is superior to yours. But in the end, neither you nor I possess anything of real worth." End of quote. Our external conditions, from a Stoic perspective, don't say much about our true well-being, yet we find them incredibly important. So much so that we are ready to sacrifice our happiness and freedom just to be seen as enough by the masses. So once again, being a loser is not inherently a bad thing. What matters is what we do. And if we see other people's evaluations for what they are, slippery, unreliable, often worthless, illusions, and fake appearances, entirely outside our control, we can become indifferent to them. Then we will realize that being a loser is not such a terrible thing. Being a loser doesn't prevent our ability to be happy and free. Striving not to be one does. Here's a quote: "Let death, exile, and all the other terrible things appear before you every day, but above all, death. Then you will never fall into a mean thought." End of quote. Whatever direction we decide to go in, we will still have to pay a price. The real question is, which price are we willing to pay? Epictetus draws a clear distinction between these two options: either be a philosopher or a vulgar person. Choosing to be vulgar comes at a cost. We pay the price of our inner well-being to reach things like wealth and praise, which means we exchange our freedom, health, and peace of mind to join the rat race and keep up with it. Being a philosopher, however, likely means paying the cost of being vulgar. That is, we will likely live a life devoid of many of the heavy, superficial pleasures, a life considered the archetype of a loser in the eyes of many. But according to Epictetus, a true philosopher always places inner peace and happiness above everything else, even work, money, and hunger. Here's a quote: "If you want to develop, reject these kinds of justifications. If I neglect my work, my business will fail, my servant will not fix it, it will be bad. Because dying of hunger, free from grief and fear, is better than living in anxious prosperity, and a servant's incompetence is better than your unhappiness." End of quote. While this might seem a bit extreme, Epictetus is consistent in prioritizing the things he truly believes are valuable. We must be willing to lose everything to become impervious to anything. Any external thing we cling to, even the most insignificant thing, automatically exerts power over our mental state. Leaving all of this behind is a difficult path, full of obstacles with little external reward and even loss and resistance. Here's a quote: "Your comfort will require you to give up, to work hard, to leave people behind, to be despised by unimportant people, to be mocked, and to receive only scraps when it comes to recognition and status. In everything, think of these costs and see if you are willing to pay them to gain peace, freedom, and tranquility. If you are not, stay away from philosophy." End of quote. So are you a pathetic person in the eyes of others? If you're laughed at or even scorned, this might seem like a terrible thing. Being recognized as a loser looks like a weak and pitiable state. However, there are advantages to this. That is, when we don't follow the rules of others, we conserve the energy we would otherwise spend on things Epictetus called insignificant, just to be seen as adequate. In short, being a loser brings the advantage of not having to pay the price of not being a loser. And ironically, this can make a loser into a winner. Based on Epictetus's words, a person must have the knowledge to decide what is truly beneficial and the power to stick to that decision consistently, regardless of things like praise, wealth, power, and social status. As he himself pointed out, someone who wants to be a general, a senator, or a consul must understand that the only way to achieve this is by despising those things that are beyond our control.